all have ways we wish it were different. It is essentially as close to perfection as we've had. It is not an inconvenience. The Constitution is not an inconvenience. I understand that progressives view our Constitution as an inconvenience. I do not want to give them the opportunity to make it less inconvenient. I agree with your statement. Thank you for bringing that up. A constitutional convention is a terrible idea. You know, I would favor some form of a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, but you do not need to have a constitutional convention to do that. Thanks for your question. It's a really important point.
In essence, I would agree that you have to be extremely careful if you ever go down that road. I've seen some interesting proposals that put very stringent limitations and rules, and yet I am grateful that we have not seen a constitutional convention since the original one back in the 18th century. Eric is quite correct that it is a document that has served us very well. And it has mechanisms for amendment, which we have done repeatedly, sometimes undone after a few years. It's a very lengthy, difficult process, and I see need for some amendments. A balanced budget amendment, if it is put together properly, again, because there are some real questions. What do you do in a time of war? What is a time of war? The Constitution defines it as one thing, but we have yet to see that in modern history since World War II, where Congress actually declares a war. So there are, from time to time, we need to review where our world has changed to the extent of needing a new, plugging in some ideas that will work with our current culture. But to change the Constitution is a very slow process, or is a process that would be fraught with much peril, and only in the most dire of circumstances would one ever consider it in my mind.
If we the people should elect one of you to represent us in Washington, what is the single most important thing you could do as a representative?
Well, I think that there's a whole agenda, so it's hard to say what the single most important thing is. So I'm going to answer that for myself as what I have said, and it would be the first bill that I would introduce in Congress. Now, I am saying this in the context of a full expectation that there will be a repeal of Obamacare, that there will be comprehensive tax reform, that there will be these other bills introduced by other members of my party, more senior members of my party. So it is really the most important thing that the Congress can do is to reduce the role of government in our lives and in our economy and in our businesses. So that comprehensive agenda is that. The first bill that I'll introduce will be the EARN Act that I alluded to in my introductory remarks, which is a framework for stopping the flow of regulation that government imposes on the private sector. But as a whole, what Congress needs to do is the single most important thing, is reduce the scope of government and its impact on us every day.
Excuse me, Matt, the only other part of that would be, then how do you do that?
You mean
what would be the most significant thing that you could do, and how would you go about it?
You mean in terms of how would you go about making it law? Or what are the specifics of the policy?
Well, I'm not certain that I can.
Well, maybe I can weave them together, because they do go hand in hand. And I'm a person who's accomplished a lot in business by reaching agreements with other people. And if you look at an agreement, you're never fully happy with it. You never get everything that you want. So that's the difference between some of the legislators we have, that you can fully agree with all of the things that they say, but they haven't been able to accomplish things. others who have principles that they abide by and principles they will not compromise on, but still manage to get things done. So the act, to tie this together with the act that I have, that I proposed, the EARN Act, it deals with, and I'm sorry, I know I'm running long, it deals with, for instance, how do you stop the growth of government? Now, what I have proposed is that every new regulation is evaluated for its comprehensive impact, and the agency proposing it has to pair that with another regulation or a change of regulation that has an equal impact. So it's like a pay-as-you-go for your regulatory impact. So that means we're not going to try to remove the authority of agencies to regulate, but rather to limit it and empower them to help do it more effectively and efficiently. And that is something that members of both parties should be able to support. So it's to come up with ways that are consistent with our principles that are things that the others can support, and that's how you do those things. Thanks for your question. And if it were easy, it would already been done, I know.
It's a very big question you ask. What is the single most important thing you can do as a member of Congress? As I look at what Congress does, or more specifically members of Congress, they really have a couple of roles. One is they vote. They vote on bills either for or against. They debate, they argue, they amend. I've been doing that for 10 years down at the state capitol, and I've learned that you have to hold fast to those principles that are non-negotiable and understand where those issues are that are negotiable, all towards the goal of better government in each and every vote. Now, there's not a single statement or action you take there as much as it's the sum total of your effort. And if you want to know what the sum total of my effort will be in Congress, I submit you look at my record in the Colorado legislature. And there are several groups that have rated those things, and I stand unapologetically on my record there. The second thing that one has is the bully pulpit of leadership. And to me, that is, if I had to pick one or the other of what is the most important, it is what are you leading people towards, not just when you're on the floor or when you're in committee, but when you're out meeting with people, when you're putting together your major agenda items, when you're, what is your goal? What is your mission? I've already stated, it's to secure our rights. It's not to build a better mousetrap or to somehow come up with a slicker tax scheme, which is the way I see most of the systems that are put together for additional taxes or regulations. Yes, we need to roll that back to secure our rights, and we need to look towards what can be, and I believe that we have a better future if we will but seize it. I'd liken today's culture as similar to the days of Jimmy Carter, if you will, only on steroids. The despair and the, just the hunkering down and let's barely survive, as opposed to when Ronald Reagan came in and said there's a better way and there will be a better day, and sometimes government is not the solution, it's the problem. I want to lead us towards that principle of liberty and freedom and away from the government systems that overwhelm our lives today.
Yeah, for me it's real simple. The number one thing is to take the power away from the Federal Reserve to print the money, to fabricate the money supply. I do agree with Ron Paul that at the end of the day I'd like to see the whole thing eliminated, but that's not going to happen. I think if you could just get just repeal the part of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and I'm not an attorney, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that really, it's like if we want less federal government, it's going to be like peeling an onion. We just got to repeal, because all these things are in federal law, and the Supreme Court only has really a lot to say about them if Congress makes the laws, right? They interpret them.